A century of conflict roots of the Israeli-Palestinian struggle. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex and deeply rooted struggle with a long and bloody history. The conflict has its origins in the late 19th century, with the rise of both Zionism and Palestinian nationalism. Zionism, a Jewish nationalist movement, sought to establish a Jewish state in Palestine, which was then under Ottoman rule. Palestinian Arabs, on the other hand, sought self-determination and independence in their homeland. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I led to Britain gaining control over Palestine. The British Mandate for Palestine, as it was known, was marked by growing tensions and violence between Jewish and Arab communities. The situation escalated further with the Holocaust and the displacement of millions of Jews, leading to increased Jewish migration to Palestine. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. The plan was accepted by Jewish leaders but rejected by Arab leaders, and fighting broke out almost immediately. In 1948, Israel declared independence, triggering the First Arab-Israeli War. The war resulted in Israel's victory and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, an event known as the Nakba, or catastrophe. The decades that followed saw a series of wars and uprisings, including the 1967 Six-Day War, which resulted in Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Despite numerous peace initiatives and negotiations, a lasting solution to the conflict remains elusive. The ongoing occupation, settlement expansion, and lack of a just resolution for Palestinian refugees continue to fuel the cycle of violence. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not merely a territorial dispute. It is a clash of narratives, identities, and aspirations. Both sides harbor deep-seated grievances and a sense of historical injustice. Understanding this historical context is crucial for comprehending the current situation and the challenges to achieving a just and lasting peace. October 2023. A bloody dawn in the Holy Land. The fragile peace that had held precariously in the Middle East was shattered on October 7th, 2023. When Hamas, the Palestinian militant group controlling the Gaza Strip, launched a surprise large-scale attack on Israel. The assault, which coincided with the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah, began with a barrage of rockets fired from Gaza into southern and central Israel, catching many Israelis off guard as they celebrated the holiday. Simultaneously, Hamas militants infiltrated Israeli territory through tunnels and by sea, engaging in fierce firefights with Israeli forces. The militants targeted both military and civilian installations, including an Israeli music festival near the Gaza border, transforming the joyous atmosphere into scenes of chaos and carnage. The attack sent shockwaves through Israel, evoking grim memories of past conflicts and highlighting the ever-present security threats facing the nation. The Israeli government, caught off guard by the scale and audacity of the attack, vowed a swift and decisive response, declaring war on Hamas and mobilizing its military for a major counteroffensive. The October 7th attacks marked a significant escalation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, surpassing previous rounds of violence in their intensity and scope. The attacks exposed the vulnerability of Israeli society to such incursions and reignited the debate on Israel's security strategy. The aftermath of the attacks would have far-reaching consequences, plunging the region into a new cycle of violence and uncertainty. The struggle for a ceasefire, international efforts and obstacles. As the violence escalated in the aftermath of the Hamas attacks, the international community scrambled to contain the crisis and prevent a wider conflagration. World leaders condemned the violence and called for an immediate ceasefire, emphasizing the urgent need to protect civilian lives and prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. The United Nations Security Council held multiple emergency meetings to discuss the situation, but efforts to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire were repeatedly blocked by the United States, Israel's closest ally. The US maintained that a ceasefire was premature and that Israel had the right to defend itself against Hamas attacks. Egypt, which has historically played a mediating role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, engaged in intensive shuttle diplomacy, attempting to broker a truce between Israel and Hamas. However, these efforts faced significant obstacles, as both sides remained entrenched in their positions, with Israel demanding guarantees that Hamas would be disarmed, and Hamas insisting on an end to the Israeli blockade of Gaza. The international community's efforts to secure a ceasefire were further complicated by the involvement of other regional actors, including Iran, which supports Hamas, and Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant group that has also engaged in hostilities with Israel. The volatile mix of regional rivalries and geopolitical interests threatened to derail any progress towards a negotiated settlement. Section 4. The Eye of the Storm, analyzing Israel's military operations. In response to the Hamas attacks, Israel launched a massive military operation aimed at crippling the militant group's infrastructure and capabilities. The Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, unleashed a relentless aerial bombardment of Gaza, targeting Hamas military installations, weapons depots, and command centers. The IDF also deployed ground forces along the Gaza border, preparing for a potential ground invasion aimed at dismantling Hamas's network of tunnels and neutralizing its rocket-launching capabilities. The Israeli military employed advanced weaponry and technology, including drones, fighter jets, and artillery, in its efforts to degrade Hamas's military infrastructure. However, the IDF's operations were not without controversy, as they resulted in significant civilian casualties and widespread destruction in the densely populated Gaza Strip. International human rights groups criticized Israel for its disproportionate use of force and accused it of war crimes, alleging that the IDF's targeting of civilian infrastructure, including homes, hospitals, and schools, constituted collective punishment. Israel defended its military actions, arguing that it was taking all necessary precautions to minimize civilian casualties, and that Hamas was using civilians as human shields. The IDF claimed that it was targeting Hamas military assets embedded within civilian areas, and that it was providing advance warnings to residents to evacuate targeted buildings. Section 5. Trapped in the crossfire. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel. The escalating violence in Gaza and Israel triggered a dire humanitarian crisis, with both Palestinian and Israeli civilians bearing the brunt of the conflict. In Gaza, the relentless Israeli airstrikes and artillery shelling caused widespread destruction, reducing homes, hospitals, and essential infrastructure to rubble. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported a staggering number of casualties, with thousands of civilians, including women and children, killed and injured. The healthcare system in Gaza, already strained by years of blockade and underdevelopment, was overwhelmed by the influx of casualties, facing critical shortages of medical supplies, equipment, and personnel. The Israeli bombardment also displaced hundreds of thousands of Gazans, who fled their homes in search of safety and shelter. Many sought refuge in UN-run schools and shelters, which were already overcrowded and ill-equipped to handle the influx of displaced persons. In Israel, the rocket fire from Gaza disrupted daily life and sowed fear and anxiety among the population. While the Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted many of the rockets, some penetrated the defenses, causing casualties and damage. The ongoing threat of rocket attacks forced many Israelis living near the Gaza border to seek shelter in bomb shelters or flee to safer areas. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world's ongoing conflicts. If you found our insights valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest developments. Together, we can deepen our understanding of the challenges facing our world. Stay informed, stay engaged. This is Edge of Conflict.